This is World of Africa on WION The World is One. Thank you for joining us. This week, we focus on Malawi, a Southern African nation of 21 million people that would hold elections on September 16th. Several presidential candidates have nominated women as their running mates. Civil organizations in Malawi have been pushing for female representation in political leadership, including the so-called 50-50 campaign that advocates for 50% female representation in parliament to bring it more in line with the country's demographics. Welcome to the show. Representatives of Malawi's political parties signed the Lilongwe City Peace Declaration, a collective pledge to maintain peace and promote fair competition in the lead-up to the September general elections. By endorsing the declaration, all participating parties agreed to campaign without violence, hate speech, or misinformation, to respect electoral officials and permit safe campaigning for everyone, and to settle disputes through legal, peaceful methods. Importantly, they pledged to honor the results announced by the Malawi Electoral Commission. This commitment marks a step towards constructive rather than confrontational political rivalry. That's our cover report this week. Former Malawian presidents launched separate campaigns to unseat President Lazarus Chakwera in the country's upcoming general elections scheduled for September 16th. Concerns about runaway inflation nearing 30% and a severe economic crisis are set to dominate the polls in the small Southern African nation, where nearly 3/4 of the population of 21 million lives in extreme poverty, and that's according to the World Bank. Opposition leaders have accused Chakwera's ruling Malawi Congress Party of stifling dissent.
If Malawi is not careful, one day evil will rule this country and Malawi will be held hostage.
Listeners, Malawians and the general practitioners would wish to see how the DPP is going to distinguish themselves from other administrations in as far as strengthening the battle against corruption is concerned.
At a rally of pounding drums and ululating women, star Malawian rapper Fredo Kiss urged young people to vote in next month's elections despite their disenchantment with the government and the choice of main presidential candidates, all aged over 70.
Youth are not taking part because they are jobless. They want businesses, but there are no solutions. What the youth need, what the youth want, governments and politicians are not providing. So there are no solutions for young people in the political space, in government, elsewhere. So there are no solutions. So they are disgruntled.
Malawi's Vice President Michael Yusi submitted his nomination papers to run for president against incumbent Lazarus Chakwera in general elections due in September. UC presented his papers to the Malawi Electoral Commission and promised to bring order in public service if elected. The Malawi Electoral Commission has received thousands of biometric kits from Smartmatic as the country prepares for general elections next month, but there are concerns about the procurement process for the contract award. According to local reports, a consignment of 6,450 of biometric voter verification and identification kits was received at the Kamuzu International Airport in the capital Lilongwe on August 1st, while another batch was delivered on August 22nd. This adds up to the 2,000 kits which were delivered towards the end of July. In the past, Malawi is said to have been bedeviled by problems related to ghost voters and voter ID theft, making it possible for individuals to vote multiple times.
28 long-term observers are ready to be deployed across Malawi, working in pair in 14 teams of 2. They will observe the campaign and preparation for the election, as well as voting, counting, and tabulation, in line with EU well-established standard election observation methodology.
100 days into his term, new Malawian President Lazarus Chakwera called for more time to implement his campaign promises. Chakwera won an election rerun on June 23rd after the country's highest court nullified a 2019 vote which had handed victory to his rival and predecessor Peter Mutharika over fraud.
Have you done enough? No, I will be the first one to tell you I have not done enough. And this country has not done enough. More than what is happening right now.
60% of the under 35 electorate turned out at the 2019 vote compared to 80% of older voters. Low youth participation is a structural issue in Malawi. Africa Bureau, WION, World is One. Puntland's success in combating a growing Islamic State group presence in the northeastern region is particularly notable given the relative lack of success of the central Somali government's confrontation with the Al-Qaeda-affiliated group Harakat al-Shabaab al-Mujahideen, more commonly known as Al-Shabaab, which for about 2 decades has waged war against federal forces. Islamist groups have been part of Somalia's fractured political landscape since the country's descent into civil war in the 1980s.
Islamic State is expanding its operation in northern Somalia, despite efforts from Somali forces to tackle the rising threat. The fighting is being mostly carried out by forces in the semi-autonomous Puntland region, and it has been substantial as soldiers in this remote area have faced obstacles including harsh terrain, ambush attempts and hidden explosive devices. They have made gains, Sky reported, uncovering a network of caves and bunkers, including a bomb factory making bombs to be attached to drones, rockets and suicide vests. Soldiers recovered large stashes of unused rockets and homemade bombs and found evidence that IS is working with other extremist groups like the Houthis in Yemen.
I am confident that there is, to an extent, a cooperation between the two. We have found letters that indicate there is correspondence between the Islamic State group and the Houthis.
In February, the US military conducted airstrikes against Islamic State operatives in Somalia. The first attacks in the African nation during President Donald Trump's second term. The strikes by US Africa Command were directed by Trump and coordinated with Somalia's government. An initial assessment by the Pentagon indicated that multiple operatives were killed. The Pentagon said it assessed that no civilians were harmed in the strikes. Trump, in a post on social media at the time, said a senior IS planner and recruits were targeted in the operation. The US has carried out subsequent strikes in recent months, according to US Africa Command. The Pentagon's counter-terrorism strategy in Africa has been strained as 2 key partners, Chad and Niger, ousted US forces last year and took over key bases that the US military had used to train and conduct missions against terrorist groups across the Sahel. The vast arid expanse south of the Sahara Desert. US military officials have warned that IS cells have received increasing direction from the group's leadership that relocated to northern Somalia. That has included how to kidnap Westerners for ransom, how to learn better military tactics, and how to hide from drones, and how to build their own small quadcopters. The IS affiliate in Somalia emerged in 2015 as a breakaway faction from Al-Shabaab, Al-Qaeda's East African link, and is most active in Puntland, particularly in the Galgala Mountains, where it has established hideouts and training camps and is led by Abdul Qadir Mumin.
It is a good thing to protest against Al-Shabaab. However, Somali people in general, and those in Mogadishu particularly, need to unite in fighting against the enemy.
We came here at Lido Beach to show we can't be intimidated. Mogadishu people are not afraid of Karijite enemy. As long as we are alive, we will stay here in our country because we don't have another country.
While its influence is relatively limited compared to Al-Shabaab, IS in Somalia has been involved in attacks in southern and central Somalia. The group funds its activities through extortion, smuggling, and illicit taxation, particularly in some coastal areas where it has attempted to control local businesses. Despite facing counter-terrorism pressure from Somali security forces, US airstrikes and Al-Shabaab rivalries, it continues to operate in remote and urban areas, seeking to expand its influence through recruitment and propaganda. The number of IS militants in the country are estimated to be in the hundreds, mostly scattered in the Kal Misgat Mountains in Puntland's Bari region. According to the International Crisis Group, the United Nations says threat from Islamic State and Al-Qaeda extremists and their affiliates is most intense in parts of Africa. And risks are growing in Syria, which both groups view as a strategic base for external operations. Africa Bureau, WION, World is One.
In Kibra, Kenya's largest slum, located in Nairobi, residents collect discarded plastic items and trade them for green points, which can be exchanged for essential services. These include the use of modern bathroom facilities, clean water, and washing machines, generally inaccessible to many households. Here is a report.
Using a crutch to bear her weight, 85-year-old Molly Aluoch trudges from her mud-walled room on the outskirts of a sprawling Nairobi slum, shouldering a sack of used plastic to exchange for a shower or a safe toilet. For 31 years, she has lived in Kibera, Kenya's largest informal settlement. Water and sanitation have remained scarce and costly, often controlled by cartels who charge residents prices beyond their means. The Human Needs Project seeks to mitigate that. Residents can trade discarded plastic for green points or credits they can redeem for services such as drinking water, toilets, showers, laundries, and even meals.
If I bring these bottles, the collector picks them and gives me green points to access toilet services comfortably. I am unable to bend over, so I have access to good hot shower services here. Bringing those plastics gives me great benefits, thus making me happy.
The project serves some 800 residents daily, allowing them access to modern bathrooms, clean water, and menstrual hygiene facilities. Services that are out of reach for many Kibera households. Since 2015, the project has distributed more than 50 million litres of water and more than 1 million toilet and shower uses. In 2024 alone, it distributed 11 million litres of water and enabled 124,000 bathroom and toilet uses.
So we exist in this space to bridge the gap of service provision and opportunities, especially dignified wash and sanitation services. We provide clean, safe drinking water, toilets, showers, laundry services, and also collection of waste plastics from the environment around here to a waste recycling plant or a waste recycling system, so that we can make our environment a better place.
With water, a scarce commodity in Kibera, it is common for vendors to create artificial shortages to inflate prices, forcing residents to pay more than 10 times the normal price. The city's water service charges between $0.60 and $0.70 per cubic meter for connected households, but by comparison, Kibera residents have to stump up as much as $8 to $19 for the same amount.
Plastics for Green Points helps me in a big way, because sometimes I might go for some casual labor and end up not making any money. If I had collected enough plastics, that would help me to redeem them for food, thus rescuing the situation rather than waiting for my monthly salary. I managed to survive in the meantime.
In the first quarter of 2025 alone, Kibera residents delivered 2 tons of recyclable plastic, with around 250 women directly engaged in daily collection and delivery. Africa Bureau, WION, World is One.
The giraffe, the gentle giant that has roamed the African continent for eons, is on the verge of extinction in 7 African countries. A team of conservationists are racing against time to save the African giraffe. And how are they planning to do that? Well, researchers reclassify the different species based on 3 main pillars, the most significant differentiating factor being skull size and even shape. Here's a report.
A new report by conservation scientists from the International Union for Conservation of Nature has officially recognized distinct giraffe species, thus changing the long-standing thought towards the towering mammals. Historically, giraffes have been classified as a single species with 9 subspecies. After many years of genetic research, it was discovered that there were evolutionary differences between Africa's giraffe population.
So this report is about change in taxonomy, or the nomenclature of the giraffes and okapi. And it's obviously taxonomy is very important. It tells us about specific species. So for conservation, the work that we do, it's imperative, it's very key that when we say this is the Maasai giraffe, everyone in conservation means that. It can be identified, threats to it can be identified, and what needs to be done to avert those threats can be identified specific to that species.
A groundbreaking reclassification of giraffe species means there are different species of giraffe. The report now lists reticulated, Maasai, northern and southern giraffes as having full species status with several recognized subspecies. Key assessment carried out by the IUCN, Species Survival Commission's Giraffe and Okapi Specialist Group, recognizes that there are 4 species of giraffe with genetic, morphological and biogeographic differences.
So through our assessment, we've recognized 4 species for the IUCN Red List: the northern giraffe, the reticulated giraffe, the Maasai giraffe, and the southern giraffe. Each species has different population sizes, different threats, and different conservation needs. The conservation urgency increases for some species when we separate them and acknowledge them as their own. For instance, the northern giraffe would be considered among the most endangered large mammals in Africa. This review will help to guide the IUCN Red List assessments and shape conservation policy and awareness.
The new listings will play a major role in how giraffes are classified, thus informing conservation efforts. The reticulated giraffe and the Maasai giraffe are currently listed as endangered on the IUCN Red List. The Nubian giraffe subspecies is listed as critically endangered, whilst the Rothschild's giraffe subspecies is near threatened.
Right now, the key threat to giraffe, as with other large species in Africa, is habitat loss. But in places like Kenya, Tanzania, we have noticed that there is a lot of poaching. Now, one key point to make is that whereas habitat loss and fragmentation is one of the key threats, poaching follows that, but also, lack of incentives for communities, lack of employment, people then turn to species. The other point I wanted to make is that all these threats work together synergistically to make the overall threat to species even greater.
Of the genetic, morphological, and biogeographic differences assessed, the IUCN has found the most significant variations lie in the species morphology, meaning the animal's shape. The IUCN hope that having additional species classifications will mean conservation can be tailored to the specific needs of each species. Africa Bureau, WION World is One.
Despite having been the target of unfavorable stereotypes, Kenya's Rastafari congregations appear to be growing. In the capital, Nairobi, they've been celebrating with prayers and songs at a newly opened place of worship they're calling a tabernacle.
This rare event, opening a tabernacle made of wooden poles and roofed with iron sheets, illustrates the Rastafari's expanding ranks in Kenya, according to members of this congregation. Kenya only recently accepted Rastafari as a legitimate religion. The turning point was in 2019, when a schoolgirl was expelled for refusing to cut off her dreadlocks, a symbol of the religion. The High Court, then the Supreme Court, ruled that Rastafari was a legitimate religion which should be protected.
Most people never saw Rastafari as a good thing, as a spiritual thing. Yes, so we faced a lot of trials and tribulations back then from family members, the government, the police, all around. Actually, even being discriminated, not being employed, lack of jobs and all that. But yeah, we endured. We are here today. Yes, my Lord. So we would say today Rastafari is better. More brethren have received this light and have come to Rastafari. So in Kenya we have very many Rastafari from all the mansions.
Rastafarians are members of a movement launched in 1930 with the coronation of Ethiopia's of Rastafari Mekonnen as Emperor Haile Selassie. Rastafarians believe Selassie was the final incarnation of the biblical Jesus. For Rastafarians, Ethiopia was a symbol of pride for its unbroken resistance to colonizers, and Selassie was Jah, the deity. Selassie was removed by a 1974 coup by a military junta. He died a year later. But the Rasta movement, inspired by his rise to power, continues in countries ranging from the United States to Ghana.
Rastafari is still a religion per se. It's not a religion per se. It's a way of life. It's a spiritual way of life. Because according to the elaboration of Haile Selassie, what is religion? Him say religion religion are rules, regulations, which were set to guide people so as they can grow up to spirituality. So religion was not an end at itself. It was meant to help I to grow to the spiritual level. That's why I Rastafari are spiritual people. That's why we connect with nature, we connect with animals, we connect with every living thing, every living being, we connect, because Rastafari is all about spiritual world.
In Kenya, the Rastafari is set up under 3 mansions or branches. The mansions represent small groups of Rastafarians who meet to worship together in semi-permanent structures made of poles and roofed with iron sheets. Rastafarians around the world have a reputation for their unique Afrocentric spirituality, and they are generally known to be peace advocates. They oppose oppression and gravitate to music and art. The Jamaican reggae singer Bob Marley was a famous Rastafari.
We have a lot of people who are ready, especially the young generation. They are coming up with that fire, like they love the way Rasta people carry themselves, how Rastafari live, like our diet, you see, like our art, our skills, and all this. And also, because this generation is like a fourth generation.
There are still challenges, including those that stem from misunderstandings about the religion. Across East Africa, Rastafarians are often stereotyped as lazy and indulging in prohibited substances like marijuana. Known to Rastafarians as ganja, marijuana is an important item in religious ceremonies. Africa Bureau, WION World is One.
And that's all the buzz in Africa this week. Get in touch with us on all our social media platforms and our website and share your story with us from the continent. We'd love to hear from you. I'm Eric Njoka. Thank you for watching this week's episode of World of Africa on WION World is One. It's goodbye from me.
India's Global Voice, the channel that brings you the biggest stories from across the world through India's lens. Now available in more than 190 countries worldwide. Because we believe that the world is one. Watch us in Africa, Europe, USA and Canada, South America,